Next, we're going to start leading into a concept known as the indifference curves. They'll also be called iso-utility curves a little bit later on. But whenever we're talking about marginal utility, up until now we've been talking about marginal utility dealing with one particular commodity, such as just a hamburger. In the last video, we were talking about how the utility of hamburgers, that additional utility, additional satisfaction, fell as we consumed more hamburgers. And we were only looking at one good. But can we just look at one good? Well, actually, marginal utility provided by different goods are actually interdependent. They're intertwined. They work together. So the amount of pizza that you will consume will affect the amount or that satisfaction of that burger consumption. So like I was saying in the last video, well, what if you ate ribeyes for 2 weeks straight or 3 weeks straight, and you ate ribeyes all the time? That very first one, man, it was so good, but by the third week, you're saying, I just want a chicken fried steak. And you eat that chicken fried steak, and oh, it tastes so good because it's different. Because you haven't had very much of it. So actually, we know that marginal utility, the amount of utility that we receive, is actually interdependent with other goods. If we are doing a trade-off between ribeye and chicken fried steak, the more ribeyes we eat, the more we desire chicken fried steak, because we ate so many ribeyes that our marginal utility actually fell, and then we eat this chicken fried steak and it tastes so good. So we know that this utility, marginal utility, is actually interdependent with other goods. So we often consume goods together or in place of each other. And this can be led into these indifference curves. So if we're looking at, are we going to eat burgers or pizza, and we're looking at, well, are we going to do a trade-off between the two of them, then we are going to look at what point are we indifferent from eating so many hamburgers versus so many slices of pizza, and what's going to give us the same amount of satisfaction. So an indifference curve. Essentially what an indifference curve shows us is it'll show us what are all the combinations of two goods that will give us the same level of satisfaction. How many slices of pizza, and how many, if we eat one slice of pizza and 5 hamburgers, or 2 slices of pizza and 2 hamburgers, what if both of those combinations give us the same amount of satisfaction? So we're going to look at all of those combinations of two goods that give us the same level of satisfaction. So that's what we're going to be leading into with the indifference curves. But before we get into that, let's start discussing cardinal measurement versus ordinal measurement. So what cardinal measurement is measuring something quantitatively, measuring something with numbers. We quantify it, such as we're measuring distance in miles, something like temperatures in degrees, profit in dollars. It's easy to measure this. We can just go out there and measure the miles. We can measure the temperature. We can measure the amount of money that we have in an account. But it's not very useful in measuring satisfaction. We can't really measure the amount of satisfaction, because how do you measure a util? We've already discussed this. It's hard to quantify satisfaction. It's actually next to impossible. I'm not going to say it's impossible. We just haven't figured out how to do it yet. But as of now, it's impossible for us. We cannot really measure satisfaction in terms of numbers. What we can do is use ordinal measurement. Ordinal measurement is a personal index of satisfaction used to rank bundles. So for example, bundle N is preferred to bundle M. I prefer this item over this item. So let's make another example. I prefer chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes over sesame chicken and fried rice. I prefer to have that chicken fried steak over that sesame chicken. Because I prefer that chicken fried steak, I know that I prefer that chicken fried steak, I can reasonably say that I would place chicken fried steak first. I order it first. Kind of using that root word ordinal, I would order that chicken fried steak over that sesame chicken, so I know it has more utils. So ordinal measurement is where you are ranking things. We're going to rank these bundles. We're going to rank those goods. So I want you to just stop and think about this. Next time you go into a restaurant and you get ready to order food and you ask yourself, which one will you ask yourself? Which one will yield the higher amount of utils? Chicken fried steak or enchiladas? Which one is going to give me more utils? Are you more reasonable to say, which one would I enjoy more? The chicken fried steak or the enchiladas? Which one would I prefer more? Which one would give me a higher amount of satisfaction? You're not actually placing a number to it. You're just saying, I place this one over that one. If you were to place a number to it, that would be that cardinal measurement. But you can't really place a number on satisfaction, so we can't really use the cardinal measurement all that much. But we can rank things. We can ask consumers to rank things using this ordinal measurement, which kind of comes important whenever we're dealing with these indifference curves, because now we're looking at two goods and we're asking you to rank and figure out, well, which one would you prefer, this amount versus this amount, and what combination of two goods. But we're actually going to kind of combine them both, and we're going to look at cardinal measurement and ordinal measurement. We're going to bring in these concepts of utils, just like we have in the past, to help conceptualize these things. So let's jump right back to indifference curves. Indifference curves, they go by two names. They go by iso-utility curves or indifference curves. These iso-utility indifference curves, they represent the combination of bundles that provide a consumer a given level of satisfaction. And it accounts for the substitution of two goods. Just kind of like up here, if we look at it in layman's terms, what are all the combinations of two goods that give us the same level of satisfaction? So down here, it's more of a formal definition. It says represents the combinations of bundles that to provide a consumer a certain level of satisfaction. So it accounts for the substitution of two goods, like I mentioned, and the slope of the curve is the marginal rate of substitution. Just know that that slope of that curve is that marginal rate of substitution, and we're actually going to come back to that in a later video. So a consumer is indifferent to consumption bundles that yield an equal level of satisfaction or utility. So let's say, for example, that you can go out there and eat a $5 meal from KFC that's chicken or fried chicken, or you can go to McDonald's and you can get a order something off of their menu for $5, or maybe the $5 meal from Dairy Queen or something like that, and both of them will yield you the exact same amount of satisfaction. We can say that you are indifferent, that it doesn't matter whether or not you go to KFC or you go to Dairy Queen, because you're indifferent. Either one is going to bring you the same amount of satisfaction. Well, as we deal with these indifference curves, any combination along the indifference curve, we're going to be indifferent to. It's going to yield the same amount of satisfaction. So as we go up and down these curves that we're going to see in the next video, we can substitute two goods, and we're going to look at all of the different combinations that give us a specific level of satisfaction. And as long as that level of satisfaction doesn't change, we can say we are going to be indifferent to all of those different combinations. So the level of satisfaction remains the same. It's just how two different products can be combined to give you the same amount of utility. So the reason we call them indifference curves is because we're looking at all of the bundles, all of the different combinations in which you'd be indifferent to, which you wouldn't really prefer A over B or B over C, because they're all the same to you. You're going to get the same level of satisfaction. Now, the reason we can also call it an iso-utility, remember, utility meaning that satisfaction, is that iso in Greek means equal. So basically what we're talking about is equal utility or equal satisfaction. An iso curve means equal satisfaction. So we're looking at what point, what are all the combinations that's going to give us the equal level of satisfaction.